Welcome to another Couch Talks. Today, Xill and I wanted to talk about DDO. DDO is...
Dungeons and Dragons Online.
And it isn't like a tabletop simulator, which some people have thought it might be. It's a MMO that is based on the 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons system. Translated to, a more live-action type video game than like any of the tabletop stuff. So you basically, go on adventures. Most of the adventures seem to be based on 2nd edition.
Yeah, there are a lot of, the stories.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of that stuff was brought forward into 3.5 as well, but...
Yeah.
They have Eberron stuff in there, and there's a pirate one, some pirate adventures. They've done a great job at having a lot of content in the game. It is a freemium based game, which I always have mixed feelings about.
Yeah.
I know when I first tried playing DDO, the freemium architecture that it had at the time seemed a lot more oppressive, I guess would be the right word.
Yeah, no, it used to be, there was this gap, so you get to level 4, and then all of a sudden, I am told that all the content is available now, aside from actual level 20 to epic levels expansion content, which, if you want to sell expansions, I'm fine with that. That's completely
definitely
different from what I'm about to describe. But at least last time I played, and we'll see how it is when we get there, you'd hit level 4 or 5, maybe level 6, depending on what you were doing to get to that point. And then, up to that point, there'd be certain dungeons were optional and you could purchase those dungeons separately, or get a pass to do them once or twice. But that was completely optional, and you get to this point where all of a sudden all of the dungeons that are on your level are that way. You can keep playing the game if you want to keep running level 4 dungeons until you're level 10.
Yeah, or whatever the next step might be. I do think that the freemium architecture in general, I'm not particularly a huge fan of it. I definitely think that, some games it's the only way for them to stay alive. Some games do it a lot better than others. But right now, it seems like in DDO also, if you have one player in the party paying the subscription, you can all go. So if you have a friend...
So what that is it used to be if one person was paying the subscription, the pass to get in was cheaper.
Yeah.
So you get a guest pass. But what we've been doing is if you're paying the subscription, first of all, I think you get all of the classes and races, you just have them, which is the main thing that they sell, but there's also all the little microtransactions that I hate.
Yeah.
But, they can choose any difficulty the first time you go in. Normally you have to unlock the difficulties.
Okay. So it seems like, there's some content that if you have a premium player, you can participate in, even if you were a free player. So that's pretty cool. Because even if 1 in 4 people are paying $15 or whatever, $10 to $15 a month, it's still a steady income stream for them. So that's pretty cool, because we definitely want to support our games that we love. I just dislike most microtransactions / freemium architectures. I feel like there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, and I haven't really figured out what the right way is to do it. So, but anyway,
Cosmetics.
we can mostly cosmetics, charge for the cosmetics, absolutely, and leave everything else alone. But anyway, moving on from that, because that's not what we wanted to talk about. The game does have, actually, it's a perfect segue into a lot of expansions and cosmetics, and of course the cosmetics you're buying from the store. Which is great. It has you can do it Pet Kobolds apparently, because she lost hers on her old account that disappeared into the ether.
Yeah, well, it was on an email account that got hacked, but it got hacked when I forgot I even had a DDO account, and then I went to log back in, and lo and behold, that email account isn't associated with the DDO account anymore.
Yeah, so... Unfortunately there wasn't much on the account, so we're just kind of writing it off. But It was basically just a kobold and one class was unlocked.
Yep. I had Drow, Artificer, and I had a pet kobold.
Okay. So, there's that. But there's a lot of cosmetics. There's several expansions. So that's pretty exciting. But we're playing with Xill's mom and stepdad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a wood elf favored soul, which is Xill.
Yes.
An Azmar monk, or Monkadin, as I call it, because you combine paladin and monk. So I'm a 1-level paladin right now. I'm a 1st-level monk as well. I'm not familiar with the builds in the game, since they are a little bit different than actual 3.5 and D20 in general. I've had to do a lot of research, which I suggest doing if you're going to play the game at all. Do some research before you really make your build, because otherwise you might think that something works well and it does not. They do have some pre-built stuff, which can be handy, but the monk, as an example, did not have any pre-built packages, which I thought was kind of weird.
Yeah, any of the paid classes
do
not have pre-built
which seems
packages.
kind of bizarre to me, but
yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, I guess I assume you know what you're doing if you're going to be dropping some money on it. You take the monk class and you combine its really good saves and a decent attack and all the stuff that a monk gets, or as much as you can anyway, with the first couple levels in Paladin, because the Paladin gets this cool thing where they can apply their charisma modifier to their saves. So you just basically jack your saves to the moon, and then spellcasters and traps alike are like, why can't I do anything to this guy? And it's a pretty viable, pretty strong build. I wouldn't say it's the strongest, but it's fun. I like it. We have a High Elf Rogue Bard, which is a classic combo, which I believe is your mom.
Mm-hmm.
And a Half-Orc Barbarian, the classic Half-Orc Barbarian. Guess what he wields. So that's fun. Character creation in the game is, definitely in-depth. For the time it was released, I feel like there was a lot you could do. There's it has its own set of problems. I feel like it is an older title at this point, so they might be starting to have some funding issues, because they have some quirky code that makes it hard to figure out what certain abilities do sometimes, and weird typo errors. Like we had an apostrophe
that turned into
an @ symbol, an ampersand, and something
and
else.
An umlaut or something.
Yeah. It was pretty special. But all those quirks aside, it's been a lot of fun to play. We only picked it up for a few hours. But
we're not playing it as an MMO.
Yes.
I have attempted to play it as an MMO, and it just doesn't work very well. You need one party, and you need to honestly not play it that often, and not throw a ton of money at it, because it will let you throw a ton of money at it if you do try. So
we're playing it basically as a 4-person party, classic D&D style, except we're letting the writers of the MMO basically be our DM. And so that's been pretty fun, especially with current events. It's allowed us to kind of have a D&D game without roping somebody into having to figure out Roll20 or any of those other tabletop simulators, which can be a challenge because you sometimes have to do some minor coding, and if you don't have the assets for the maps and stuff like that, and you have to build all the maps, it can be the overhead can be pretty high. Though a lot of those programs work extremely well if you do take the time.
Yes.
Which could be a different subject again. So one of the things that DDO does with the classes that I noticed is it has the enhancement paths, or whatever you want to call them, where you get ability points, and you spend the ability points on these trees. Basically, it's tech trees, which is very different than the actual 3.5, obviously.
Yes.
And it doesn't look like you actually get ability points every 4 levels. You basically, instead, you get these ability points every quarter level, and you put them into these trees, And some of the trees give you bonuses to your, core attributes like strength, etc. But most of them give you bonuses to attack and defense and like.
Or like I have one on my favorite soul that's my crit chance for healing spells goes up by 3%.
Yeah, and so it's pretty cool. There's each facet of your character has its own tree. So you get a tree for your race. You get a tree. You get it looks like you get 3 to 4. For just your class. And then it looks like there's generals that open up later from what I was reading online. It doesn't look like they're actually behind a paywall. It looks like they're just generals that open up a little later.
You mean the rows?
Yeah.
That were rented out? Yeah. No, certain ones will be like, you have to be level 3 to access this row. Or certain abilities will be like, you must have 5 points in this tree. Or stuff like that.
There's a couple trees that I have access to that I can't put any points in yet, and it looks like they're behind actual.
Is it like the harbors?
It's like I don't remember what they're called, but yeah, I was reading in the wiki, and it looks like those are potentially not behind a paywall like I originally thought. I could still be wrong about that. Still doing research on it. Like I said, we only played for a few hours, like last night or a couple nights ago now.
And the other thing with it is if you do get really into it for whatever reason, they have this really cool like reincarnation system where you hit level 20, and then I don't remember if you have to do any of the epic levels or not. But you hit level 20 and maybe do some epic levels, and then you can reincarnate your character, which you start over at level 1, but each time you reincarnate, the game remembers that. And so you'll get access to certain feats after you've reincarnated from a certain class, or even like a certain class a certain number of times.
That's cool. Huh. That seems interesting, actually. I didn't know that.
Yeah. We probably won't get there with our plans.
Yeah.
Being to play once
every other week.
Dungeon every other week.
Yeah, or like a few hours every other week or whatever. But it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. So on when you're doing your feats though on your character, both in the game when you're playing and when you're creating your character, there's no real search function, which can be a little bit obnoxious. Because you want to be able to see like where, how am I going to get improved trip? What's the feat chain that I might need for that? But you can't, it's hard to look that up without being able to find improved trip to figure out what it needs. So you end up having to go through this huge list of feats because you can't just search for a specific feat. And you also can't, you can't also divide it by like tree as an example or anything like that. So, if they were to do a major update of any kind, I would hope that they did something with that. That would be cool. So far, the system seems pretty fun. I like what they've done. They've even made it so that a lot of the social skills have some kind of role in the game.
Yeah. I do feel they're very weak.
They do. Most of them feel fairly weak, I do have to say. But, like, an example would be, like, diplomacy makes a unfriendly humanoid friendly for 6 minutes, which is actually quite a while, really.
6 seconds.
6 seconds? I thought it was 6 minutes.
Seconds.
Okay. Anyway, 6 seconds is still a long time in combat.
Yes.
But, so that's kind of cool, but yeah, it's, or maybe it makes them neutral. I think it makes them neutral. Regardless, it makes it so they probably aren't going to attack you right out. It'll give you enough time to walk past them or something. Which is pretty cool. I like that they tried to find a use for all the skills. It is, like jump as an example does actually make you jump higher. Stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And you can actually grab ledges in that game.
Yes.
Which
is one thing that I haven't seen any other game, any other MMO do.
I don't think I've ever had an MMO make it so you could grab edges, ever. That I can recall. In fact, I've had MMOs I've straight quit because you couldn't jump at all. Like, the original Guild Wars is an example.
2 might have let you grab ledges.
Maybe.
I don't remember.
I've never actually played Guild Wars 2, even though I've always wanted to.
That's fair. I think the base game is free to play now. That one would be fun to mess around in.
Yeah, I'll have to maybe check that out. Of course, it is a dated game, so there's a lot of guides and a lot of information out there already. Although the community does seem to be spotty at best, because as an example, the wiki literally has incomplete information.
Yeah. Also, just when we were in town, it was very empty for an MMO.
I mean, it was the starting town.
Break.
Yeah, I suppose. It was the starting tone though, but I don't know how they break that all up. They do have a lot of servers.
You can't go back to it, but I don't know. What I've always seen is when there's something like Spring Break, if the MMO is healthy, the starting zones are full.
Yeah, that's fair.
Especially if it's free access to that starting zone. People just pick it up because they're bored.
Yeah. One thing that did drive me nuts about when you're rolling your character actually was some of the information you could get, but you had to go all the way to the end of the character build to see like how things panned out, which meant you ended up having to go. You couldn't just like tab to a specific part of the build. You had to go back through everything usually.
Yeah, so you'd be picking like. What was it that you came across? Was it Feat or something?
Yeah, I think it was a feed, I want to say. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, but you'll pick some kind of feature, and then depending what panel you're in, if you mouse over it, there's no tooltip.
Oh, that's what it was. I was picking my races. Looking at all the different races to see what kind of things they gave you. And you couldn't actually see what they gave you until you were like halfway or in the builder or all the way at the end of the builder.
Yeah, and then if you wanted to change race, if you start backing out, it just clears like all of your core stats, all of your skills, any spells or feats you've chosen, your name, obviously appearance if you change your race, like that one I get.
Yeah, so I mean there's definitely, it could use some love to modernize it, I feel like. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that happened to me anyway was that I glitched the character creator. I glitched it. I went and bought my stuff, messed with some of the settings, and then like tried to create my character, but it was saying I had to pick my alignment, and the alignment box had disappeared. It was gone. There was no alignment box anymore. I did not get to pick an alignment. I had to almost restart the character build in order to deglitch it. Mm-hmm. Which was a little. Actually, I think I did restart it. Fortunately,
I think you completely exited the character creation menu, and when you came back, it was in the spot it was supposed to be. Then it definitely.
Yeah, so that was weird. Overall, though, I have to say it's my experience has been positive. I think there's a lot of really cool ideas about DDO that I would like to see propagate to future MMOs. Things like grabbing onto ledges. The characters are a lot, for being a class system, the characters feel a lot more dynamic than pretty much any other MMO. Mm-hmm. Even like Final Fantasy XIV, which has some of the best like character flexibility because you can have various classes and you can just switch classes on the same character.
But the builds in DDO are actually unique.
Yeah.
And I think that's possible because it does not play as an MMO.
Yeah. And so, and there's that, but like, so the difference is like 14 is flexible, but like once you're a role, once you're the tank, you're not going to turn around and be doing DPS. Whereas in DDO, it seems like you could roll a paladin and still pump out a lot of damage if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. Not to say that DDO is perfect, because its immunity system, its aggro system, is bad. The AI for the bad guys is pretty bad.
You also get a lot of fun quirks, like if you trip a zombie, it'll just like float around on the floor.
Yes, and when we were playing, the servers were having a lot of lag issues, it seemed like.
Yes, despite seeming quite empty. Like, there were times I couldn't, like, log in.
Yeah, or I would go to move and I would just stand there. And for like literally there was a huge lag spike before Xill got on that it lasted literally 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Where I was trying to move my character through the intro dungeon and I was just stuck.
Uh-huh. Because the door was visibly open, but like the physics engine had not decided it was open yet.
Or something along those lines. I couldn't move at all, so I think it was just a lag spike where it was just like, we don't know where your character is and your character doesn't know where they are. So, but all that aside, it's a really cool little MMO. If you have some time to kill on it or for friends that don't want to spend any money, you can drop in there. You can, all the base races pretty much, except for like half orc, are free. All the free. You can just drop in there.
And the free classes, if you don't want to put time into a build, there are like options.
Yes.
Like there's all of them have 3 options, and you just get to pick.
Yeah,
like,
all of them.
I want to be a virtuoso bard. Sure, that sounds fun, and then your character's basically made for you.
Yeah. So that's pretty nice, and you can just drop in, knock out a few dungeons, do your role play if you're into role playing or whatnot, and you don't have to, Shanghai anybody into being the DM or anything like that. So that's pretty cool. Do you have any final thoughts?
I feel like I said everything.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, if you like MMOs and you were looking for a unique MMO, go try DDO for a while. It's pretty cool. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a magical rest of your day. And don't forget, hit that like button. Do it. Do it.